We had some highs, we had some lows, and we had some oh no's. Is it just me, or was July a really wacky reading month? Hi, my name is V, and welcome to my channel Mama Needs to Read Romance, and give you a breakdown of a reading month that was all over the map. I managed to get through 12 books. One I did a soft DNF. We'll talk about that one at the end. But let's talk about my 5-star, These Summer Storms by Sarah MacLean. She's one of the many historical romance authors who's recently been sort of pivoting and trying new things. And in this book, MacLean presents us with, I would say, a fiction, maybe women's fiction. There are beautiful elements of romance and spice in this book, which was really fun, but it's mostly like a really messy family drama, which I tend to really actively avoid, but this one was done perfectly, in my opinion. But it's got mixed reviews, so go in reluctantly, maybe. It's kind of all over the place in terms of how people felt about it. For me, it felt like a really fun Knives Out type of scenario. You know that movie where you've got a bunch of bad apples that are trying desperately to make it through a week on their own private island, because of course these guys are super rich. After the death of their father, he gives them one last task each. They have to make it through the week, and if so, they get what he believes to be their inheritance. What do they have to do? Will they make it? What are everybody's actual motives? And what's the inheritance? So many questions get revealed. There are so many times to gasp, so many plot twists. I had a great time with this hot mess of a fiction book. 3 of the books I read in July were 4.5 stars, which I'm very excited to report. One of which was a reread. This is Lisa Kleypas's Marrying Winterborn, book 2 of the Ravenel series. Of course, we need to look at this step back. Here we have Rhys and Helen. Rhys is the reason I wasn't able to give this a full 5 stars. I'm not a huge Rhys fan. He comes off a little too gruff and aggressive, in my opinion, but I adore our gal Helen, this poor girl who's always been on the sidelines dealing with everybody else who they've got tempers. She's like the quiet one. She's this beautiful little angel, really. I mean, she's so dear, and she's afraid of just being left behind. So she decides to take matters into her own hands and go after Rhys Winterborn, who had already offered for her, but in the first book of the Ravenel series, it goes terribly wrong, and her engagement is broken with him. Well, she comes back for him, and he has to do some interesting things to keep her, knowing that her family is not going to be excited about Helen and Rhys joining forces. There are some secrets that I completely forgot about. I don't know how, but I had a blast rereading this, getting to see the entire ensemble cast again. I mean, it's just so much fun. The Wallflowers and we just had a great time. Actually, that one is only me and Rachel, that book club meeting. So if you want to go to Rachel's channel and see everything that we said about this book, feel free. I'm going to link it above. But we had a great time. Another 4.5 star I had the pleasure of reading as an ARC, but then I pre-ordered it out of support for Kate Bateman. This is her last book with St. Martin's Press. They unfortunately didn't renew her contract. This is the 3rd and final book then of the Her Majesty's Rebels series. Road Trip with a Rogue. Who doesn't love a road trip? This one really delivered. I had so much fun with this. The reason I didn't give it a full 5 stars is because, again, I'm like sort of not super sold completely on our hero because he does some things that make me crazy. But ultimately, this was so much fun. We have Daisy. She is hard-nosed. She's gonna get the job done, as we may know from the Her Majesty's Rebels series. This is a team of ladies who we've all grown to know and love, who do secret spy type jobs, and they have tasks. They get paid a great deal of money, and she has to try to stop 2 people from getting married as they flee to Gretna Green. She encounters this gentleman who is going to help her travel there. Of course, you know what happens. There's only one bed. There's only one horse. Will they make it to this couple in time? And what happens next? Again, there's so many twists and turns in this. The humor, I love Bateman's humor. And the spicy times were top notch, as always. If you enjoy historical romance, if you enjoy a good road trip, you're going to love this book. I mean, you will. It's one of my favorite historical romances that I've read this year. And it's one of my very favorite Kate Batemans of all time. So it might be even my favorite. I'll have to think about it. But yeah, give it a go. You won't be disappointed. Another one that I read that was near perfection for me was Aaron Langston's The Finest Print. I was so excited because this one has recently been published via audio with Mary Jane Wells and Will M. Watt, who are two of my favorite narrators. I mean, the two of them together, come on, just stop. It's perfect. And with Aaron Langston too, I mean, how could it get any better? We have an American newspaper person. No, we don't. We have an American journal. No, we don't. We have an American journalist named, oh my gosh. We have an American journalist named Ethan. Now, Ethan is hoping to get his own newspaper, and he finds out that his uncle has left him said newspaper in England. He leaves everything behind, including a decent job, in hopes that he is going to inherit this newspaper and make it his own. He's really excited, but then he finds that it's underwater. Not literally, it's just that his uncle owed a lot of money, and so it's going to go under. He needs help, and he has two people that are adorable and willing to help him, and a lot of paper that's all a little bit damaged. It's not good enough for printing quality for a newspaper. So what does he decide to do? He finds a woman who he actually had just had a little chance meet cute encounter with at a park, who needs to write. She's been dying to become an author, but it hasn't happened for her, partly because she's a woman. In any case, he convinces her to write Penny Dreadfuls, which are weekly, like a series, and everyone gets really into it, and he's able to use the paper. There are some twists, though, including the two of them that are supposed to be working together. They wind up falling for each other after initially definitely being sort of at odds because they don't always have the same goals. She wants to put out work that she can be proud of. He just wants to save the newspaper. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the entire cast. The only thing that kept this from being a full 5 stars for me was I didn't find it to be quite as compelling. I wasn't as gripped as I was hoping to be. When I stopped reading, I was like, oh, I'll come back to it. But sometimes, especially with Forever Your Rogue by Aaron Langston, which was just perfection to me, it was like, I needed to know. And I didn't feel that as much with this text. So I wasn't able to give it a full 5 stars, but it was still just wonderful. And again, you can read it physically, which is great, but even better with the audio. If you're into that, go for it. I also had 3 4 stars this month, the first of which is Texas Splendor by Lorraine Heath. I had really, really high expectations for this after having fallen for the other 2 books in the Texas Destiny series. A group of us have been buddy reading this and having a fabulous time, and I needed Austin to have the best happily ever after ever, because I fell in love with this boy. He's so sweet and just wonderful. In the first book, he's so dear. He plays the violin. He's got such a sensitive heart, but he's never known the love of a mother. Like, he doesn't even really ever experience women in the beginning of this series, and he's just so dear. And something insane happens to him in the second book, and he is sent to prison. And in the third book, this one, he is just finishing up his 5 years of prison time. And I don't know, if I would have written this, I would have written it so differently, but I'm not a writer, and I'm certainly not Lorraine Heath. But it was just so heavy, and so many bad things happened. And I'm sorry to be vague, but I don't want to give spoilers, and I feel like anything that I'm more specific about may do that. But the characters really go through it. And check your trigger warnings. I loved Austin. I loved seeing him get his happily ever after. And I loved our heroine, Lori. She's been living on the outskirts and she's got a huge secret. The two of them have a chance encounter while he's trying to clear his name after having come out of prison. Because even though he's out of prison, it's still very much in the minds of the community that he is a murderer. But is he? He's trying to help other people understand what actually happened that night and why he was there without giving away certain things that would hurt other people that he came to care about. Again, being vague on purpose. It's important because these plot twists are everything, and it's way more fun if you go in knowing little. The way their lives are intertwined was sometimes bittersweet, but ultimately Lorraine Heath brings us a standing ovation level finale, which I absolutely adored. Another 4-star for me is one that we're actually going to be talking about the day this video comes out, which is A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. The Swoony Scone Society is going to be meeting on Tara Talks Books channel, which I've linked here if you'd like to see, as we talk all about this book during our Ashley Poston read-along adventure that we've been doing. This book I actually liked more than the first book of this read-along, the one that just came out, Sounds Like Love. Now this one technically has a lower Goodreads score, but that may also just be because it has more ratings in general. But I really found this, for the most part, to be something I really enjoyed. There were certain twists that I didn't care for. But overall, this is a fascinating story of a woman who has really lost her way, has lost herself, and doesn't understand how to be valued or even be a main character in her own story. Speaking of story, she winds up one night driving into the small town that is featured in her beloved series. Now, the author of that series passed away. And yet somehow this fictional town exists, but the series wasn't finished. So where are these characters now? What's going on? And what happens when our heroine gets in there and starts moving and shaking? And she develops feelings for the hero, who she believes to be fictional. What's a girl to do? I found the meditations in this to be exceptional. As you can probably see, or maybe you can't because you can't really tell, I really did highlight a lot of this, which I'm looking forward to talking about during our discussion. But the platitudes kind of get really pumped out by Poston in the third act to the point where it was sort of disjointed from the rest of the plot. I felt like this was a little bit too long, and ultimately it was a great ending, but I feel like the way she set it up to make it more epic sort of deflated the overall feel of the novel, in my opinion. And like the other Poston book I read, I had a hard time really connecting with the vast majority of the characters. They don't feel as richly developed as I would like. If you've read Poston's books, do tell me in the comments, is this something that you tend to find when you read her? What are your thoughts? I'd love to know. My last 4-star is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. This was voted by my channel members, and I was excited to read this in conjunction with our road trip through North America. And this, of course, is in the West. This is set in Wyoming. This is the first book of the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I've seen these covers everywhere. I was looking forward to trying one out for myself, and I was excited when this was voted #1. This pretty much delivers exactly what you would expect, which I loved. This was a quick read. It brought ranch vibes. You're getting dusty cowboy boots, neon lights in a bar, family vibes. It was really everything that I was looking for and anticipating. I also really liked how this author showcased Emmy's ADHD. There have been times in the past couple of years where I've read some books that have featured people with differences, either cognitive or physical, where it doesn't feel like the author did it for any other reason than to maybe sell books, because maybe that seemed in. That's not been the case for most of the books I've read that have featured people who are, for example, neurodivergent. I love that, but occasionally it does. This, I feel, is one of the most organic and beautifully representative books featuring a neurodivergent heroine. I really liked how her ADHD is woven through the plot, how it explains how she interprets the world, how she has relationships with people in her life. It felt so organic. And the author explains that she has ADHD. This is an own voices book, which you can really feel. I love that because not only does it give people who have ADHD a chance to feel seen, but it helps create empathy for those of us that maybe don't understand people with ADHD enough. And isn't that a wonderful thing? I'm starting to sound like I'm on a soapbox. I'm sorry, I don't mean to. The reason I had to give this 4 stars instead of 5 is, for me, I felt like the love scenes did not carry the tenderness that I felt throughout the rest of the text. And so it felt tonally off to me. People who love dirty talk, you're gonna love this. But the love scenes did not hit the mark for me at all. It just took me out of the story. So for me, I had to mark this down to a 4 stars. But still, it was a lot of fun. A little more background on the book. We have Emmy, who is a barrel rider. I actually had to look that up. It's primarily a woman's sport where you try to create a cloverleaf pattern while riding horseback as fast as you can around giant barrels. That's barrel racing. She fell off. She had a big accident. And so she's terrified to get back on the horse, literally. Who's going to help her? None other than her brother's best friend, Brooks, who has quite the reputation in town as a ladies' man, shall we say. So this is definitely a forbidden romance because her brothers definitely do not want them together. So there's the fun sneaking around and the surprise of them falling for one another when they've known one another forever. But I love the ways in which they brought out the best in each other and helped one another to grow. I had 2 3.5 stars in the month of July. The first one being the first book of our Ashley Poston read-along for the Swoony Scone Society. That is Sounds Like Love, which was just released this year. And I initially gave it 4 stars, but upon further reflection, I think it's more like a 3.5. So I have amended that. If you watch the live show, I did say 4 stars, but yeah, I think it's more like a 3.5 for me, especially considering that I liked this one, A Novel Love Story, more, and that felt more like a 4 star. So I really enjoyed the premise. We have a man and a woman who are at odds with one another. They kiss, and then they can hear one another's thoughts, despite the fact that they are across the country from one another. They're trying to figure out how they started hearing one another and what they can do to make it stop, while also being part of an adorable small town. That's where she lives. He comes to meet her to figure out what they're going to do. The cast was fun, although some of the characters were not nearly richly developed enough for the story to continue to be compelling, as things happened to some of them where it just sort of felt hollow. Many of us mentioned that during the live show, where we were just thinking, how are we supposed to feel about this or that, having not really known these characters or their backstories? I really liked the coastal North Carolina setting, as that is where I am from. It gave me all the home feels, which I really enjoyed. I wish that the story had unfolded differently, especially in the 3rd act, where the order of events, I think, was a little bit disappointing. But overall, the premise was really interesting, and I loved the meditations on family. This mother of our heroine has dementia, and the way that it was handled in this book felt better to me than the last book that the Swoony Scone Society read together, in which the mother also had dementia, which was Abby Jimenez's Say You'll Remember Me. So I did appreciate that. There were some fun moments, there were some swoony moments, but ultimately a little better than middle of the road. The other one that wound up being 3.5 stars for me was Only Lovers in the Building. This one was a lot of fun. I got to listen to the audio arc, or ALC, as they're now calling it, Advanced Listener's Copy. So if you haven't heard that acronym very much, get ready, because it's coming. The ALC. Our heroine has decided to quit her job as a lawyer because no one's taking her seriously or giving the credit that she's due, and so she gives herself her very own vacation in a really fun hotel filled with a colorful cast of characters in Miami, Florida. It didn't really give the Miami, Florida vibes. You know that it's set there, but it's just basically in a hotel, and there's a book club that meets a lot, which is also fun. Our hero was pretty swoon-worthy, I felt, very intelligent, Both of them have very unique insights into the books that they're reading. And it was kind of meta too, because a lot of the book has to do with online presence and the way that book lovers connect over social media about the books they love. And I thought that was very interesting. They talked about reviews and ratings and all of that. And I just found it to be sort of fascinating. But ultimately, I had a very hard time being compelled by the book or even interested to see what was going to happen. I'm not sure why that is. For whatever reason, I guess it just felt kind of like the plot was just various people being introduced, people interacting, and I didn't really see a lot of forward momentum in our hero and heroine as they were continuing to interact. It was just a lot more of the same thing. They just never really felt real to me. Since I've watched Only Murders in the Building, it was fun to see a more romantic perspective. But yeah, I would have loved more summery vibes, more Miami vibes, and a more compelling romance. I just realized that I forgot to talk to you about my 3-star, which is Only Between Us by Ellie K. Wilde. This is book 2 of the Oakwood Bay series, and I was really excited to read it after having fallen deeply in love with the very first book. This one, though, fell middle of the road for me, and very similarly to Done and Dusted, only much more. The love scenes really took me out of this book to the point where, I mean, it was hardcore. It was up there with the spiciest stuff I've ever read. And they were long scenes, and there were a lot of them. And I didn't feel like it was doing anything in terms of helping the plot for the most part. It just felt sort of unnecessary. If you really like spice, though, you're going to love this. If you like dirty talk, you're going to love this. But it was really heavy spice. Way too much, and tonally completely off from the sweet, quiet moments that our hero and heroine often shared, which is what I think made me give this even just a 3-star, because I really found this to be a very fun celebrity football fake dating romance, despite the fact that I've read bunches of those. But it was fun initially and a lot of the time. But again, like it's just the love stuff, the spiciness really, the parts that were not spice, I loved. The parts that were spice, I really didn't like. My point is, we have a guy named Brooks who needs a comeback desperately. The only way to clean up his image, though, is to fake date this woman he's had a beautiful, adorable picture taken with. She is in need of cash because her father's bait and tackle shop is going to go under if she doesn't make some like social media deals, which she would absolutely get if she were to date him. He thinks she's just a gold digger. She thinks he's just an opportunist, and he's not very kind to her initially either. That was another problem I had. He was a little on the possessive side. I did like his protectiveness, though, and I think often when you're expecting a football romance, you're expecting the guys to be a little more alpha and aggressive and all of that. So I do expect some of that, but it was just a little over the top for me. I really liked our heroine's backstory. I felt that she really grew as a character, as did he. She did, though, I think a little bit more. And I was also very impressed by the way that they found commonalities deeply hidden in each other. I found that to be really moving. There was great banter. Oh my gosh, just tremendous. And he's so thoughtful. He's so yummy and wonderful until you get to the love scenes. But again, you know what? That's an opinion thing. That's like what kind of ice cream do you like? Like, you can't argue that, right? Everybody's going to have their own taste. So that's how I felt about Only Between Us. Man, did we talk about this one a lot on Tea and Biscuits. This one I've actually amended to being a 2-star. This is How the Duke Was Won, book 1 of The Disgraceful Dukes by Lenora Bell. This is her debut novel. So perhaps we're not being fair. I loved the conversation that we had in which they referred to this as a kitchen sink book, which is often what happens apparently with a debut novel, where you just try to throw everything in. There were a lot of plot points, a lot of what on earth moments for me in this book. I didn't particularly like our hero. He was kind of odd, and a lot of his decision-making seemed flawed. This book is supposed to be kind of a fun house party in which our heroine is pretending to be her half-sister. She's supposed to guarantee that this Duke will wind up asking for her hand in marriage. She's going to do the old switcheroo, and he'll wind up marrying our heroine's half-sister. What's in it for our heroine? All the money she needs to turn her mother's brothel into a boarding house for women who need support. This book had a lot of soapboxes to stand on, so much so that the romance was relegated to the back burner the vast majority of the time. We get to see our heroine basically being a superhero throughout the book, which was nice, but not exactly what I was looking for in an historical romance. Our hero is courting potentially 4 different women who show up at his home for this extended holiday, in which he will then choose one to be his wife. It sounded really fun, but really felt more like a cringy episode of The Bachelor. There were some fun moments for sure, and I definitely want to read more in this series and more by Lenora Bell because I've heard great things about her, but this book on its own was not my cup of tea and biscuits. And finally, what I would call my soft DNF, Doctor Shipped by Savannah Scott. Now, what's a soft DNF, you may ask? And maybe you don't even know what a DNF is. Let me school you. A DNF means do not finish or didn't finish. Now, the soft DNF means it's not that you won't ever read it. It's that you're just not going to read it right now. You're just putting it back on the shelf and we'll hopefully pull it back down again, which is my goal. At the moment, it didn't feel like it was compelling to me at all. Each time I went to go to listen to it, I didn't really particularly want to. Probably partly because we've got a grumpy doctor here who moves into town and is giving a hard time to our adorable heroine who is tutoring his daughter. He's a single dad, of course. And we get back to this small town filled with this ensemble cast who I could not remember. I felt so bad. I really enjoy much of what Savannah Scott has written. But to be entirely honest, her Getting Shipped series, the small town series, has been pleasant, but not something that's ever something that I would find to be super compelling. There are books that I have read by her that I really, really loved, but this series, I'm having a hard time remembering any of it. And this is like book 5. And so when you're supposed to be enthralled by the romance, when you don't like this one, and you're supposed to really be drawn in and having a good time with all the side characters who you can't remember, it's hard to do. I did pick this because it's set in Ohio, which during our Midwest leg of our channel members staycation would have been perfect. I just couldn't continue it. So I do want to read this again. And I probably would like to read the entire series back to back so that I can remember the characters. Anybody with me? Do you ever read a series and you wait so long to get to the next book that you really can't remember what happened in the earlier books? It's so much richer if you still feel connected to those other couples. Let me know in the comments what really stood out to you in the month of July, good or bad. Or you can just leave me an emoji that expresses your reading month. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying whatever it is you're reading, regardless if you can remember the other characters in the series or not. Until next time, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.